Testing, testing. Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, get my coffee out of the way. There's my apple. It's actually not an apple. It's a sculpture of an apple. Get Richard Prince out of the way. My painting of Richard Prince. Want to see that? Bing. Today is the second version of Kenny Uncut for Spaghetti Boost. Am I screaming? I'm always screaming. Today we're going to talk about art fairs. Right now I'm feeling pretty shitty because I'm missing Basel, Art Basel, Paris, FIAC. Oh no, Basel took over FIAC. Let's skip that for a second. The first contemporary art fair in the world was, not as many of you would imagine, in Basel, but it was in Cologne, Germany. In 1967, the first Art Cologne, Basel hasn't taken that over yet, was launched. And that was in a way to it was an effort by a group of art dealers to concentrate and promote interest in the German gallery scene, which I guess was still reeling after World War II, trying to bring some excitement and business primarily into the contemporary art market. Year was 1967, and funny enough, the prices of all of the artworks, I'm pulling my shit together here, the prices of all the artworks were on the wall during the fair. I think that's something they may consider bringing back. So, skip ahead 3 years to 1970, and we have the first Basel Art Fair. So, contrary to most people's beliefs that Ernst Beyeler, the great art dealer from Basel, who today his legacy lives on in the form of the Beyeler Foundation, a museum largely funded in perpetuity through the incredible art dealing practices of Ernst Beyeler. But there's one interesting little side note, which I'm not sure if my editors at the old Spaghetti Boost will keep this on the plate or cut this. But Beyeler, at his 75th birthday party, some years before he passed away, said he would like to thank he would like to thank the collectors that let me rephrase that you can cut. Ernst Beyeler, although this is Kenny Uncut, so keep it all in, what the hell. Beyeler said, I'd like to thank all the collectors that bought art from me and enabled me to have a successful art dealing business and create this museum. But secondly, I'd like to thank all the people that didn't buy art from me because you made me wealthy. They say you make money selling art and you create wealth by not speculating, not flipping, but keeping art long term. Take note of that, folks. Because that's what you do at art fairs anyway. You're meant to collect. So, the Basel Art Fair was, in fact, the idea for the Basel Art Fair came from my friend sitting next to me, Trudl Bruckner, who was an art dealer in Basel. This isn't really her. She passed away a few years ago. This is an art piece I made, which is a painting of her stretched on a piece of wood. So it looks like she's sitting next to me. This is actually my dining room in my house. And Trudl Bruckner, to get this effort coordinated, approached Beyeler, and together they launched the Basel Art Fair. I think with a few others, it's not important right now. And that was the beginning. I remember back in the day when I first got involved in the art world in the late 80s, early 90s, there were very few art fairs on the international circuit. In America, the biggest fair was Art Chicago, and there was Cologne, and there was Basel. And it wasn't the norm as it quickly became in the early thousands, that there are galleries that were doing like 10 to 15 fairs a year. There may very well still be. I remember when I moved to England, where I lived from 2004 to 2019, I lived in London. I remember when I moved in '04, even though I'm an artist and a curator and a writer and a teacher and a blah, 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 I thought it would be really good for me to do a load of art fairs within Europe, because while I lived in, coffee break, while I lived in London, I really wanted to be Euro focused on all of my art endeavors. So in 1 year, without even having a gallery, because I've never really been that professional in anything I've ever done, but I did have a project space. I was going to curate shows. I did a bunch of projects there with Vito Akanchi, with Zaha Hadid, a bunch of other artists over the course of the first 5 to 10 years I lived in the UK before I stopped doing that. And I decided to apply to fairs with this kind of fake gallery. So I applied. In 1 year alone, I did 7, which was insane to think about. At the time, there was no Wi-Fi in any of the fairs, and I had a little dongle that enabled me to access the internet, which ended up costing me some exorbitant fee per fair for the 4 or 5 days that the fairs went on for, which by far offset any money I ever came close to making, but we'll leave that to another time. In 1 year, I did Milan, Torino, and Bologna. That was in Italy alone, 3 fairs. Art Cologne, Armory, Basel, Miami, skipping one. Oh, Brussels, where I sold nothing and had a completely museum quality installation with Paul Tech, Vito Akanchi, Robert Smithson's sculpture that was owned by Eva Hesse, which I didn't sell, which was an extraordinary thing in and of itself. But I just thought it was great for exposure. I did 7 fairs that year, none of them terribly successfully, surprise, surprise. But in any event, it came to a point before COVID where galleries were doing, like I said, up to like 15 fairs a year. I mean, that is an exorbitant amount of costs, excessive costs, traveling, shipping, staff. I mean, not to mention the fees for fairs can end up costing between $100,000 and $200,000 for a booth alone if you're one of the megas needing giant amount of space. But right now we're in the midst of Basel, Paris, and after COVID, for 1 year during COVID, there wasn't a single fair, which was something to behold. It was kind of fantastic. It was just, we were all on this hamster wheel, running from fair to fair to fair, and who was suffering besides our families? But the galleries were suffering because people weren't bothering to go to galleries at all. It's incredible to think that you can go to like a fair in fill in the blank, Hong Kong or any other jurisdiction, and really if you're from somewhere like New York or London or Rome or Cologne or any hub where there's a load of galleries, you're going to see like 20% of the galleries you would see not even in your backyard, but in your own front yard if you just bothered to take the time to look at galleries. So an avid gallery going schedule, if you're in the jurisdiction where there's many galleries located, will obviate the need to even go out to the airport and go to a fair in the first place. I missed Frieze, I missed Basel, and I've been writing and making art on the home front in New York, in my house. I'm in my studio right now, / dining room. And I have to say I'm pretty annoyed that I didn't go to Paris. I didn't miss Frieze at all, I could care less. But Paris, it's really the first full-blown return to the Grand Palais venue, which is an extraordinary place to see art. Art fairs are like, I was thinking, what is an art fair anyway? The experience. It's this condensed community where there's this concentration of activity. There are the ancillary fairs, the satellite fairs. There's Paris International now, which is probably among the very, very best. There's always Nada, and there's the Independent in New York. There's all kinds of other fairs that either are standalone events or piggyback on the bigger mothership events. But then, in any case, Basel Paris is going to really take over the impetus from Frieze. It already has this year. There seems to be an incredible success unfolding as I fumble in this video of museum shows, gallery shows, satellite fairs, and a great success from what I've heard and read and seen online in the last 24 hours in this first full-blown iteration of Art Basel in Paris. So really, fairs are this integral component of the art market. Galleries thrive. Some of them make the majority of their income during these events, and they rely on them. It's really kind of like this weird hybrid of a museum show, a gallery show, and a shitty convention, commercial convention, which could be household goods, pets, boats, cars, whatever. So it's really this kind of, it unfolds within a period. Maastricht drags on for 10 days, the main fair, but typically they're 3 or 4 days. And it's really like this kind of accelerated reduction of the typical space-time continuum of a 1-month exhibition or 3 months in museums case. And you're seeing this incredible group of artworks. I mean, you could walk around a fair and spend $1 billion without even shaking hands, just by nodding your head and saying, yes, I'll take it. So there's an incredible dynamic at fairs. You see wonderful art. There's this great intercourse with loads of people, sometimes real intercourse, in the hotels after the fairs. But they're really incredible places to see art, meet people, have experiences, have encounters, some planned, some random. And there's something quite wonderful about fairs, I have to say. And for certain, I'm going to be at the next Art Basel Paris. Yeah, I mean, that's it. Fairs are changing, they're growing, they're shrinking, but they are a necessary component of the art world, of the art business, of our art lives. I'm not going to say a necessary evil, because they're wonderful. Even if you go to the worst fair, you're bound to see something wonderful and, yeah, find something to add to your collection. I guess that's it for now. I don't know, was that any good? Nothing really funny, controversial. Doing my best. Thank you for my special guest, Trudl Bruckner, great art dealer, visionary from Basel, Switzerland. And if it wasn't for her, there wouldn't be an Art Basel Paris, Basel Plus, Paris, Basel, whatever you want to call it. Goodbye.